continuing on the discussion on the different kinds of orbits, there are very special set of points that we have, and these special points are called as Lagrange points. Now the knowledge of Lagrange points becomes very important for you because of the fact that we very soon will be launching Aditya L1. You might have heard of this particular project of ISRO, Aditya L1, our own probe to the sun. So for that we are launching this particular probe, and this point is associated with it. When you see any discussion in the newspapers, you will see that they have mentioned this word Aditya L1. So this point L1 has a particular significance. This is one of the Lagrange points. What is the meaning of Lagrange points? Let's try to understand. So if you look at this particular picture on your screen, you have 5 particular points that you can observe: L1, L2, L3, L4 and L5. L1, L2 and L3 remaining in the same line, straight line, joining the sun and the earth. This is the earth. You have the earth here and you have the sun here. So on the same line joining the sun and the earth, you have 3 points. One, which is L1 between the sun and the earth. Second is L2, which is behind the earth. And the third one is L3, which is behind the sun. After that, you have 2 more points which are located at 60 degrees ahead and behind the orbit of the earth. These are L4 and L5. Now these points are very important. These are 5 points which are said to be very stable. How are they stable? They are stable because of the gravity. The effect of gravity that you have between the two bodies, this is something that makes it stable. So if you look at these points, you have the sun here, you have the earth here, and then you have L1, you have L2, you have L3, you have L4 and you have L5. These are the 5 points that we have. Now if you observe this diagram, if you look at the depression that you see at the site of the earth or at the site of the sun, the hole that you have here, this is the gravitational effect. This is something that is created by the gravitational effect. And because of the gravitational effect, we discussed about this while discussing gravitational waves and gravitational lensing as well, that this kind of an effect will be seen in the space-time. So if you just observe all these lines that we have here, these lines signify the gravitational effect of these two celestial bodies. So now if you look at these points, when you look at L5 or L1 or L2, L3, etc., what do you observe? If you look at this segment, which is one area which is stable. Similarly, on this line also, this is a flat surface, right? This is an area which is flat. This is an area which is flat. Similarly, this is also an area where you can see the stability. This is also an area which is flat. So this is something that is observed for any two bodies. For example, between the sun and the earth, you see this between the sun and Jupiter. You see this between earth and the moon. Between any two celestial bodies where one body is revolving around another body, you will have these 5 points which are relatively more stable as compared to anything else in the vicinity. So that's why these points become very special for us. How are they special? Because if you consider these points, let's say when we are talking about L1, what's special with L1? You have the sun here, you have the earth here. It is a point which is directly between the line joining the sun and the earth. So if you want any spacecraft to have a direct look at the sun all the time, then in that case, this is your point. So that's why Aditya L1, which is our solar probe, is supposed to be launched where? At L1. Why L1? L1 has been chosen because it will have 24-hour direct access to the sun. If we had launched it as a normal satellite, then there will be times when it will be behind the earth as well. But this point is something that will keep on revolving along with the sun. As you can see on your screen, this is something that happens, that every time the earth and the sun moves, similarly all the 5 points also that you have here, all these 5 points also will move simultaneously. So that's why an object which is at L1 will still remain at L1. It will not be dislodged from this point. Similarly, L2. L2 is a point which is behind the earth. What's the significance? When you want something to be shielded from the rays, the radiation of the sun, then L2 is your point. For example, space telescopes. When we talk about space telescopes. So if I have to launch a space telescope, this is the best point. Why? Because the lenses that you have on the telescopes, they are very sensitive to the radiations of sun. They can be destroyed because of the radiations of the sun. So we always need to keep them shielded from the radiations which are coming from the sun, the electromagnetic radiations. So for this also, L2 becomes very important point. Why? Because L2 is behind the earth, correct? It is in the shadow region of the earth. So that's why anything that has been placed at L2 will be shielded from the sun. It will never see the sun. So that's why L2 is very significant. So if you have heard about James Webb Space Telescope, which is supposed to be now launched in 2022, James Webb Space Telescope will be placed at L2. Initially, it was supposed to be launched in 2019, then it was deferred to 2020, and now we have heard that it has been deferred to 2022. So, James Webb Space Telescope at L2. You might have heard of the Hubble Space Telescope, which has been giving us a significant amount of data for past couple of decades. So Hubble Space Telescope has also been placed at L2. So L2 particularly becomes very important point from that perspective as well. Then after that we have L4 and L5. So when you look at L4 and L5, these are very stable points, more stable as compared to L1, L2 and L3. Look at the picture that you have here, the bottom two diagrams. When something is at L1, L2 and L3, and if it is dislodged from this point, then what will happen is that it will start to spiral towards the center. It will start to spiral towards the center and it will ultimately fall towards the center. This is what will happen. If the object has been dislodged from L1, L2 or L3, this spiral will start and ultimately it will not remain here. But when you look at L4 and L5, what do you see? You see that although it can be dislodged a bit, but it will still remain in this orbit. It will not be dislodged completely. So that's why we say that L4 and L5 are more stable points as compared to L1, L2 and L3. So there is one NASA mission which is named as Stereo. Set of two satellites, one placed at L4, one placed at L5. Why? So that it can take three-dimensional view of the sun. For that very purpose, there are two sets of satellites, one placed at L4 and one placed at L5. So very stable point. So the analogy that we take for L4 and L5 is, if you take this as a hill valley situation, let's say there is a ball that I place here and there is a ball that I place here. You can have this point also as stable. You can place the ball here as well. But as soon as it is dislodged, it will be completely dislodged. It will not remain at this point at all, right? So that's why when we consider the stability of L1, L2 and L3, we consider it as this kind of a stability. But when you look at L4 and L5, this is this kind of stability, where dislodging it from this point is not going to be easy. So that's why L4 and L5 are supposed to be more stable as compared to L1, L2 and L3. So L1, very important, when you need direct access to the sun. L2, when is it important? When you need to be away from the sun, when you want to be shielded from the sun. L4, very important, this point is not going to be easy. We consider it as this kind of a stability. But when you look at L4 and L5, this is this kind of stability, where dislodging it from this point is not going to be easy. So that's why L4 and L5 are supposed to be more stable as compared to L1, L2 and L3. So L1, very important, when you need direct access to the sun. L2, when is it important? When you need to be away from the sun, when you want to be shielded from the sun. L4 and L5, particularly important from the point of view of taking the image of the sun, three-dimensional figure of the sun. When we talk about L3, L3 for us normally does not have a significance. We have not seen a particular application area for L3 yet. But if you are an alien, you want to park your alien ship, L3 would be the best point, because you are completely diagonally opposite to the earth. You will never be observed from the earth. So that's why if you are an alien, probably L3 is the point for you. Otherwise, for us, no particular application has been observed yet for L3. Now, L4 and L5 are also important from one particular point, and that is the fact that they are points where Trojan asteroids are found. What are Trojan asteroids? We discussed about asteroids, that what are asteroids, and we discussed that there are various kinds of asteroids. So These are particular asteroids which are always associated with the orbit of a planet. So for example, at L4 and L5, we see that these are stable points. So that's why once an asteroid comes to this point, once an asteroid has arrived at this point, then it is not dislodged from here. So L4 and L5, we also say that it has a kind of a pulling effect where it, because of the fact that it is very stable, once it is here, these points, these objects will always remain here. So that's why these kind of asteroids are called as Trojan asteroids, because these are not the asteroids which are in the asteroid belt or in other parts of the solar system, but rather they have become very stable and they always remain at these points. So that's why these are called as Trojan asteroids. Even our Earth has a Trojan asteroid which is called as 2010 TK7. This is the name of the Trojan asteroid that is at L4 of the Earth. Similarly, Jupiter also has a lot of Trojan asteroids, and there are missions also which are being launched by NASA. There is one particular mission which is supposed to be launched, which is named as Lucy. This is the mission that is supposed to be launched for Trojan asteroids of Jupiter. So that's why, because of all these reasons always have been in news, so you need to understand what is the meaning of these, just in case a question comes in the prelims examination. So these are points. Very simple, stable points. Why important? L1 and L2 especially you have to understand. And the major factor for their stability is the force of gravitation. They are stable because of the gravitational effects between two objects which are there in the system. Just remember these couple of points, you will be good enough for the examination.